Hello and welcome back to another video, and today it is another edition of non-league news, keeping you up to date with all the big stories from around non-league football in this week. So make sure you leave a like on the video. Let's try and smash 40 likes as we always do on this series, so we much appreciate if you could smash a like. Subscribe if you're new. We're on the road to 4K, so make sure you subscribe and drop a like. And yeah, let's get into the news. So the first news story comes from down south, or in France, and it's from Dover. They have sacked Chris Kinnear after 5 years in charge. This means currently the first two managers sacked in the National League are both from the Kent Cubs, and maybe Ebbsfleet could be next. Maybe some rumours from Ebbsfleet, but Dover have sacked Chris Kinnear, and it looked a matter of not if it was going to happen, but when. He was doing awful. They only have one win. They've got only 6 points. They got battered on Saturday against Salford, and they're looking really poor side. And it was pretty obvious it was going to happen. So Chris Kinnear is out of a job. Maybe he can swoop into one of the other jobs in the National League South. Looks like he wants to continue managing at the moment, but you have to agree with Dover. This was probably the right move, but he has done really well. He obviously got them promoted, beating Ebbsfleet in that playoff final. That was another rubbish playoff final I've been to. I don't like playoff finals. So they beat Ebbsfleet, and they've done really well. Obviously, he brought in Ricky Miller, who scored like 40 goals in a season, and I think they got in the playoffs or just outside of it. And then he then lost the majority of that squad, and then got it together, and only was 1 point out of the playoffs. But their start to the season has been awful, with only one win, and they need to turn things around. We're 2 months into the season now, so a change was needed. But the new manager that's come in is going to be Jay Saunders. There's already links to maybe, I think Jay Saunders might get that job. I think second to bottom or bottom. Who's going to be able to take that? Who's going to take that side on? And maybe who can keep Dover up, because they need a new man to order to stay in the National Leagues. But yeah, let's go on to the next story. So the next story is another manager, and this is actually from Hereford. In my last video, non-league news 2 weeks ago, they appointed a head of football, and his first role, I did say, was to bring in a new manager, and he has done that. Not really the hardest task to do, as he just brought in a manager that he knew that he was at Gloucester City, who are doing okay, and it's Mark Richards, who's Tim Harris and Mark Richards have worked together for a long time. Mark Richards took on the job, I think, last year, and he's been working with Gloucester City for 10 years, so he's got a huge job at Hereford compared to Gloucester City, who we'll talk about later, who have got a story related to them. But yeah, that's obviously a new manager. Hereford will be looking to improve on their dodgy start to the season. They're not doing too bad, but the size of Hereford and how they've done over the last 3 seasons, they'll be hoping to get in those playoffs, and Mark Richards will be hoping to do that. And considering Tim Harris knows Mark Richards, and should hopefully for them be a good appointment. So the next story comes from Gloucester City, the side that did lose Mark Richards. They are currently searching for their manager, but that is not the story. The story is that they could be going back to Gloucester. So their stadium at the moment is not in their hands. They are 23 miles away from Gloucester, which is obviously horrible. They're ground sharing with Evesham Town, Evesham United, and they just needed some backing to get back into Gloucester and get that stadium. And it's much easier to obviously get a following and get some good attendances if you're in your hometown, because if you're 23 miles away in Evesham, it's going to be much harder to get a following. So if they can get back to Gloucester, and they seem to be working with the council and they seem to be backing it, Gloucester City maybe could be going back home to Gloucester. So the penultimate story is a pretty sad. This one comes from Sutton United, and their striker and very prolific one, Tommy Wright, who's rated very highly at Sutton, has unfortunately got an UCL injury, so he'll be out for most of the season. And this is obviously horrible news. You don't want to hear that for anyone. And considering he was playing very well, that means he will be missing Sutton's remainder of their incredible trip in the Iron Brew Cup. They are, of course, going to Dublin. I think that is this Saturday. That must be so exciting for Sutton fans to watch your team in Ireland. But unfortunately, Tommy Wright will not be able to experience that. But surely he'll be flying over and watching it, hopefully. Yeah, on to the last story. The last story comes from Nuneaton Borough. Non-League YT already done a video on it, but I wanted to talk about it as well. Nuneaton have got no chairman, no owner, and they're bottom of the league as well. They really are struggling. They look like they could be going to administration again. So basically at the moment at the club they have no directors, so the manager and the few staff that are there are running the club completely. It's a really tough situation to be in, and if Nuneaton can get a great escape out of this, then it'll probably be one of the greatest escapes ever, because if you have 4 staff members and no owner, the club's still up for sale. If they manage to stay up and manage to turn this round, they've got literally no money. I really hope they don't turn it around, because you don't want the club liquidating again, as 10 years ago they liquidated again, and had to reform. They're now back into the National League North, but it looks like they could potentially liquidate again. So hopefully my boys from Nuneaton are okay. Let's go on to the scores from the FA Cup, some of the big shocks, and the tables from the National League, and yeah, let's go. So those are the results from the FA Cup. I'm just going to talk about the big shock of the FA Cup, which was Dunston 4, Chester 3. I'm sure the Chester joint managers were absolutely livid, but Dunston are in tier 9, tier 10, and they beat a tier 5 team. No, tier 6 team. That is the magic of the FA Cup. If you think about that, that is 1 tier lower than, or above, Hashtag United. So it's like Hashtag United going and beating Chester. That is insane. What a fantastic win for Dunston, who are actually from Gateshead, and just absolutely fantastic win for Dunston. It's the magic of the FA Cup that a 10th tier team could be playing against. Well, they might not be playing. They probably won't be able to play against Leyton Orient. But look at some of the size of the clubs in the 4th qualifying round. Obviously, if they can win one more, they're in the first round. They get to play against Football League clubs. But they could play against Gateshead. Gateshead in the same location, that'd be a big derby. And imagine if they shock them, that'd be fantastic for them. But Dunston, what a fantastic win. Let's go on to the National League results and the National League tables. So, shock of the game week in the National League. I'm going to give it to Barrow 2, Sutton 1. Sutton managed to beat Orient and their fantastic unbeaten record, which has stand the whole season at their own park, but then go and lose to Barrow, who have looked decent. They play really attacking style, but at times they've got a really young side, and sometimes it just doesn't come off. But they're a fantastic win for Barrow, and you know they just need to get it on a consistent level, because maybe good go for those playoffs. But Barrow, fantastic win for them, but really disappointing for Sutton. I think game of the game week in the National League. There's not many 2 fantastic scoring games in the National League, but I'm going to give it to Dover 1, Salford 4. Salford just continuing to show their dominance of the league. What we expected at the start. I said there might be a jitter, but they've come out all guns blazing. They are battering teams to pieces. Dover, without a manager, second to bottom in the league. It was pretty obvious, and Adam Rooney had an absolute field day. A hat-trick, and yeah, not surprised. I'm not looking forward to going up there, and we'll probably get battered, but hopefully it's not as bad as Wrexham. But yeah, onto the table. Of course, we've now, Salford continue to stay top, but Orient return after their poor loss to Sutton with a win, and there kind of be a little gap from the top 4. The top 4 look really solid. Harrogate and Wrexham also look really good. Wrexham, and then Solihull just get a disappointing loss against Barnet, which was unexpected. Fylde having a bit of a jittery start, drawing a few games. Hartlepool get a win, so they're looking really solid. Gateshead maybe starting to turn that around. Sutton will be hoping to return their form. And Eastleigh, they're doing really well. 4 wins from 4. They're looking a much improved side. And Andy Hessenthaler's doing a really good job. But they won't be able to do it without Jack Payne. He better come back to Ebbsfleet and start playing as well as he did against Eastleigh. Barnet looking a little bit better. And then there seems to be a little bit of a gap. You can see the massive gap already between... Look at example for Chesterfield. 20 points between them and the top of the league. That is so hard to catch. If you look at that, Ebbsfleet, again, we're not doing too great. look down in the relegation spots, loads of those sides are just not getting wins. I think none of those sides in the bottom 5 have got a win in the last 5 games, apart from Braintree, and they're all really struggling down there. Chesterfield especially, to be down there. They got a good point against Fylde, but they really need to do it a little bit better. And Maidstone, the revolution of Harry Wheeler, hasn't been able to continue from their 2 wins. If you look at the form table, I don't like this form table, I'm not going to lie to you, because it has Ebbsfleet. I know we're 17th in it, it's not too bad. Obviously we've got Salford top of it, Eastleigh doing very well, and of course got Dover down there. If you look at the home and the away table, home, it's not too great for Ebbsfleet. We are in the relegation zone. Only 4 points, only 1 win at home. It really is bad for us at home. And also we've got other sides you expect to be down there. Teams with a decent home record you wouldn't expect is Aldershot. They're got a really good home record, but an awful away record, pretty similar to Ebbsfleet, but the other way round. For the away, we're in the playoffs. Come on. Obviously, our home record's absolutely awful, but surprisingly, Aldershot are down bottom of the away table. So yeah, hope you enjoyed non-league news. Sorry I couldn't do it last week. I just had to. I don't know. I just couldn't record it. I didn't have time and stuff. So I hope you appreciate that. Please leave a like on it. If you did miss it last week, please leave a like on it. I will try and get it out weekly because it is tough to keep up with all this stuff. So please leave a like, subscribe if you're new on the road to 4K, and I'll see you all later. See you later.